Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode that We Should Talk. Today, I am so excited, so delightful to have one of my beloved teacher, maestro, from the international school, the cinema and TV from Cuba. And my heart is beating very hard because that's bring me a lot of memories from my homeland and also for the special place that I was studying and working in the international school. And for me, that little bubble, it was all the place that I learned it all. So today I have the pleasure, the talk in this episode with Sandy Lieberson. Bravo, maestro. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. Thank you, gracias for your time. And Sandy Lieberson don't need too much. When you see his face, you will recognize personality in the film industry and TV. He started to work since 1957 and in the industry, and also acting as an agent with big names. When I tell you, you will recognize Sergio Leone, Lindsay Anderson, and the Rolling Stone, and beyond, and do the most beautiful film that it's now like a reference film. The producer, the Alien, the Blade Runner. I had the books here. Long list. When you Google Sandy Lieberson, you will see all the amazing movies and TV and series he have produced. So, maestro, welcome to this space. Thank you.
My pleasure. Let me just clarify something. Some of the films that you mentioned, I was a producer of, but also I worked for 20th Century Fox Studios and MGM and was supervising the development and production, but I wasn't the actual producer on all of those films. But I was supervising the production.
About your childhood, and I remember you mentioned your parents. You born in the United States, and your parents were immigrants, right?
Yes.
And I would like to just
immigrants from the Ukraine
and Russian, right? Between yes.
Yeah. They were Russian-speaking Ukrainians.
Yes. Ukrainians, yes. So in that, I will, if you can tell us a little bit how it was your as a child having an immigrant parents. For me, it's always as an immigrant myself. I always curious how is the life because it's completely different, and then your path.
Well, you have to remember because I was born in 1936, and my parents were immigrants from Eastern Europe, Ukraine, Russia. So they came over in 1912 or 1913. And so it was not uncommon because there was a huge influx of immigrants into the United States in the 30s, leaving Europe and various other places, Latin America as well, coming to the United States. So I was part of that generation that had immigrant parents. It meant that my parents would speak Russian at home or Yiddish because they were Jewish and some English. And I just wanted to be an American kid. I didn't want to be a foreigner, an immigrant. I embraced American culture. I was born there, grew up there, flourished there.
Yes, yes.
So that was my background coming from immigrant parents. Yes, it wasn't a disadvantage.
Good. No, I just ask you because it's always can be a little bit challenging when you grow up and how you then get in the industry and start your career, long career, and establish yourself. Sometimes that can be, even as a born in the country, can be challenges, right? And yes, but you do very well. You're very
well. Our family, we grew up in East Los Angeles. It was a barrio, City Terrace, Boyle Heights, mainly Mexican, a lot of Jewish immigrants, and some Japanese as well. So it was a very mixed neighborhood. And Los Angeles has always been divided east and west. If you come from LA, you're coming from the barrio, from Boyle Heights, etc. If you're coming from the west, you're coming from Beverly Hills and Bel Air. So from the time that I grew up there, to today has changed enormously. It's hard to recognize Los Angeles for somebody who grew up in it in the 30s and 50s to today, because, first of all, there's a mentality to always tear down buildings in Los Angeles and put up new ones, tear them down again and put up more new ones. So it's always been divided east and west. So our family in the east part of LA, that's where I grew up. My expectations were very low in terms of my brother was a plumber. My father had a laundry store. So we weren't intellectual, weren't successful immigrants in that sense. They were working people who, both my mother and father worked in order to make a sufficient living. So that's the background that I grew up in. I never expected to be in the film industry, television industry. It was beyond my expectations. I wouldn't know how to get into it. So,
But you did it. How was that?
It really, I was a valet parker in LA, parking cars in LA, and working in a restaurant, parking the cars. And a car came into the restaurant. I opened the door, very beautiful starlet actress. And I go to give the guy his check for the car. Mike, I knew him. I'd been in high school with him. Here he was coming into a restaurant. I'm parking his car. He's got a beautiful blonde in a convertible. And I thought, what happened? How did you get this? He said, I'm an agent. And I said, what's that? I had no idea what it meant then, really. And he said, well, I represent actors and writers. And so I said, well, any chance I could get a job as an agent then? And he laughed and he said, give me your number and I'll give you a call sometime. And I never expected to hear from him. But he did call me a couple of months later and said, I'll introduce you to somebody. And it was through that I got a job as a press agent and then got a job as an agent representing actors and writers and directors. And so that was the beginning. Yeah.
Yes, that's one of my questions because I remember you mentioned that, and I would like you only to share this with the audience because it's sometimes our path as a big in the industry, the film industry can be very different, and we start in many different roles until we get where we want to do or what we want to really enjoy and you are passionate and you very well done that part and also as a educator as well. That's the part is connect with me when I met you in the school in Cuba. So this transition, how was for you? How changed your life now when you start to do the agents and then start to do productions, creative production, because I would like to talk about that as well as a creative.
So I got a job at the William Morris agency in the mailroom, delivering packages and delivering scripts to actors and writers and all of that. And it is a progression. You worked in the mailroom and then you became a secretary and then you became a junior agent and then an agent. And so I started in the mailroom and I was very lucky and hardworking, ambitious, because I had such low expectations of what I could actually achieve in life. Yes, I loved cinema as a child. I saw everything, all kinds of films, horror movies, comedies, dramas. I loved cinema, but I never expected that I would actually be able to work in it. So when I got a job at the William Morris agency, they were the biggest agency in the world at that time, representing actors, writers, and directors, and producers, television, films, etc. And I started in the mailroom. I was just clawing my way up. And I got promoted from the mailroom into being a secretary. I had to learn how to take shorthand and typing, worked as a secretary and promoted. And then I became an agent. And, I loved doing it. I loved representing the talent, particularly the actors who are always so insecure in a way. And I thought had the most interesting part of the creative process, which was the acting. I've always admired acting and been interested in it. I'm an agent representing, fortunately, wonderful actors and writers and directors and successful in it. Love doing it. It was such an interesting profession. Now, of course, the agents rule Hollywood. They're the ones that are in control of all of the actors and writers and directors and producers representing them. And so they have an important part to play in putting together movies and getting finance for movies and representing the actors and writers. Yeah, it's a great profession.
Yes, no, thank you for sharing that, Sandy, because to talk a little bit, because I remember you as an educator in the school, as I said before, in the school, international school, the cinema and TV in Havana, in Cuba. For those who don't know, it was an amazing place to study and to work in that time. And you was ahead of producing and to developing a very important international workshop who changed my life. After that, I learned a lot how to become a creative producer, because since before that, nobody talked about too much about how to become a creative producer and all the steps that you have to do as a producer. I remember there you bring that year, my year, Maxine Walters, big producer from the United States, and for me it was like a life change. How do you think is important the role of the producer as a creative in the industry, and a little bit take away the misconception that we are only, as a producer, we are only businessmen or the one who manage the money. It's more part the creative there. Could you explain a little bit for the people who don't know or maybe want to know more, please?
Well, I mean, producing is a composite of a lot of different skills. As a producer, you've got to work with writers, you have to work with a director, you have to be able to participate in the casting of the film. So I come from Hollywood, where it's an industrial process, where we're making hundreds of films a year, thousands of hours of television each year. It's a huge industry. And so the producing aspect of it, you need a lot of different skills. You need the skill to find the money and to get the film financed. You have to know about distribution, how the film is going to be distributed and how it's going to be advertised. You have to be able to work with the director. You have to understand budgets and be able to develop the budget and actually control the production. So you've got this whole group of responsibilities. It isn't just getting the money, just getting the director. It's a combination of skills of bringing all of these elements together and then to supervise the producing of it. So I saw in its entirety that the producer can contribute in all of those areas, or some of them. It depends on the nature of the producer, their interests, their skills, etc. Some are very good at finding the money, but know nothing about reading a script. Some read scripts but can't get the money. So it's a question of finding that synergy where people can come together. And sometimes you co-produce a movie with 2 or 3 other people who all contribute. It depends on the individual, but it's in its entirety, you have to be very skillful at a lot of different aspects. So it's a lot of responsibility. And it needs a lot of ambition as well and belief.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. And as I say before, when I took your course after that, really understood my role as a film producer in Cuba and the moment. And after that, it was kind of more understandable for me to navigate what role I would like to do and which area I would like to be more involved. And yes, it was a very important course for me. And also all the resources that you shared with us, it was amazing. I still have my notes here, my books with the festivals and all the resources. It was a life change, I will tell you, Sandy, and I am so grateful for that. Your role in Cuba and all the amazing film industry that you brought to Cuba and teachers who came thanks to you. So that's something important I would like to remark, because I know you influence a lot. How was that process in Cuba? So could you want to talk about that a little bit? How you get involved with the international school in Cuba? How was your path there a little bit. That's something that make me happy.
I never had a plan for my life. Things happened. I meet somebody in a parking lot and get a job.
You are a lucky man.
I'm working in Los Angeles and somebody contacts me in Rome and says, "You want to come to work in Rome?" I go to live in Rome. So I'm much more an instinctive person. I don't have long-term plans and, ahead for the next 20 years. Things happen and I respond to them. And that's always been my strength. And some friend of mine called and said, "Listen, I'm normally teaching Cuba every year, but this year I can't teach because I'm committed somewhere else. Would you like to go down and do a workshop for them?" So it was by coincidence that I got to the film school in Cuba and worked there. And it was interesting for me because producers in Latin America, at least up until the last recent decade, were not valued at all. Producers were,
the
you have to organize the production and get the money, but don't get involved with the casting, don't get involved with the script, don't be involved with the director, etc.
Exactly.
Very, very, yeah. So what I wanted to bring was the potential of what a producer could be. Yes, you have to work within the confines of your industry in Latin America, but nonetheless, you can begin to think of the other areas that a producer could contribute and help in the making of the film. So that's what I try to bring to Cuba and to structure the workshop in such a way that people who came to the workshop were encouraged to think about what kind of a producer they could be in their own country. And it worked. I feel really gratified that so many graduates from the course at the film school in Cuba have gone on to be successful producers, executives in television, various other aspects of the business. And it was, I think, opened their mind. They workshops and worked extremely well for Latin America.
Yes, no, absolutely. School must be proud of you because, yes, you changed how the industry can be. And also, you brought to us the perspective, the Europe as well, because you came from working in the British industry as well. So you had experience both. Do you like to share a little bit with us? How was your experience in UK and how both industries are different as well, right?
Yeah, well, I was working in Los Angeles, and as I said, I got a call from somebody that I only knew vaguely to say, "Would you be interested in coming to work in Rome?" And I immediately responded, "Yes, I would like to." So they offered me a job, and I went to Rome in the early 60s. What it did was it opened my eyes to what European cinema was becoming. It was the time of Neorealism, the French New Wave. It was in Germany, etc. The cinema was exploding post-war, and it was so exciting to see how Europeans worked as opposed to how the industry functioned in the United States at the end of '63. And yeah, it was the time of Cleopatra. There were American films being made at Cinecittà Studios, etc. But it was the time of Fellini and Visconti and Bertolucci and people of that caliber, Sergio Leone, etc.
What a lucky time.
The European cinema was exploding with new ideas, new talent, Godard, etc. And it was a very, very exciting time to actually be exposed to a culture that made those kind of films and made them in a very particular European way. So what it did was it gave me another plank in my producing. One, understanding the U.S. market, the industry there, then come into Europe, seeing about co-producing, how films were financed internationally, the talent that was there, the kind of films, and talent was much more accessible. I could pick up a phone and speak to Visconti or whoever it was. There was no barrier. Well, you have to, talk to my agent, no, talk to my lawyer, talk to my accountant. No, you spoke directly to the talent.
Wow.
That's the way it did not work like that in the United States. There was always these barriers. And so Europe was very open. If you were a producer like Carlo Ponti or Laurentiis, etc., Cristaldi, were people who, put films together. They understood how to talk to talent, how to get the money, how to organize the distribution. Yeah, it was a very, very exciting time to work in Europe with European filmmakers.
That's amazing. You are lucky. I admire you.
Yeah, very, very lucky.
Yes,
Yeah.
when you share that in class, I was like, oh my goodness, one day we will do it, because it's completely different experience for as a creative producer or producer. Yes, it's a different industry. Wow, that's amazing. Any story that you want to share? How was, for example, be involved in the production this very classic movie now, and a reference for us, for all the filmmakers and creative, Blade Runner. That's something based and inspired in the beautiful books that I have here today. I just brought from Cuba that book.
Okay.
I have here so do you have some anecdote or something you can share, of course, with our audience that we should talk?
Blade Runner, I'd worked with Ridley Scott. I knew him. We met in London when I came to live in London in 1965 and work there. He was working for the BBC in the art department. Then he began making TV commercials, incredibly successful TV commercials that were powerfully visual and storytelling. And I knew him, we were friends. My relationship with him professionally started on Alien. I brought the script of Alien to him and got Fox, where I was working, finance the film. And that's where our professional relationship began. Before that, he was very successful in TV commercials. And I'd seen his commercials. I'd seen the first film he had made called The Duelist, which was not successful, but I could see the potential that he possessed in terms as a filmmaker. So I then brought him on board as the director, and while I was working at 20th Century Fox, and had a relationship with him, very successful with Alien. I was working at that point for Warner Brothers, and he came with the script of Blade Runner. Blade Runner there were 6 or 8 different scripts written that were never made. Different producers were involved, different directors, etc. And so it was not a new project. It had been around Hollywood and rejected for one reason or another. The whole basis of the story, etc.
Yeah, it's a very hard.
So that's where our relationship began on Alien. And then he brought the script of Blade Runner to me and to Alan Ladd, who I worked with at Warner Brothers, the Ladd Company.
Yes.
We read the script, we met with Ridley, we talked about it, etc. And we agreed to finance the film in partnership with Warner Brothers, with third-party companies as well. That's how Blade Runner came. We decided to make it at the Ladd Company, Warner Brothers. We did make it there, and it was a very interesting situation because Warner Brothers wanted to sell it as an action adventure film. And it was not an action adventure film. This was a very cerebral movie. The advertising was designed, as an action adventure film, etc. It opened in 12 different cities. It got terrible reviews, generally 1 or 2 good ones, but bad reviews, and it disappeared. The film was out in 2 or 3 weeks. It was gone. Cinemas, unsuccessful. And about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years later, they began midnight screenings at the universities. And it was Blade at all of these university screenings at night.
Yes.
And that film was re-released and became,
a classic.
yeah, a classic. It's a typical Hollywood story, unsuccessful, but this one resurfaced. It resurfaced in a new era because it was just the beginning of the internet, beginning of social media, and that's how they communicated at the universities. And so it had that social media behind it that then sort of elevated it into,
Yes.
in a different way. But it's an interesting story. Yeah.
And I would like that you share that with us, with this audience, because I remember you tell that story with us at the school, one of our conversations. But I was kind of fascinating because how sometimes opinions can change through the years, and also how it's all dependent the moment. You never know what the products that you do or the films you do or your books can be in another generation an important things and a classic thing, or the perspective change, the perceptions change, and that's amazing with a creative product, right? How
Yeah, I don't think that's unique to films, although it happens very often in films. But in literature and theater, and things are rejected and then they're rediscovered and
yes,
become very successful. Things that people anticipated being very successful were failures. So you never know. I mean,
exactly.
that's one of the exciting things about this as a business and an industry. You are trying to gauge how the public is going to perceive and receive what you want to make. And that's a very tricky and difficult thing to do.
Absolutely. You saw Reject, and now they're a classic for us and this century now. And yeah, there's something fascinating with this. And the point is always you have to do your idea and put it there. And one day maybe it will be a good thing for other, and you never know, right? Or believe in the production.
I was working as an agent when I began, at the beginning of being an agent, or the way it works at an agency is you have 8 or 9, Warner Brothers, Paramount, Universal, MGM, United Artists, and agents. You work covering one of those studios or two of those studios, trying to sell your clients, et cetera, et cetera. And so the beginning was assigned Roger Corman. I don't know if you know who Roger Corman was, but he was probably from post-war the most influential producer in Hollywood because he discovered people like Francis Coppola and Martin Scorsese and dozens of Jack Nicholson, etc.
Yes,
all low-budget films. These were films made for $300,000, $200,000, but they produced this incredible talent of filmmakers and actors and writers. Yeah, he was a very interesting man because he was an extremely intelligent man. He had been American, but he had been to Cambridge. He was an intellectual. But at the same time, he was a businessman as well and practical. And what he did was he discovered this talent in Hollywood. And he gave them the opportunity to make these films for $100,000, $200,000, low budget. But it was where this talent grew from. He was my sort of most influential person that I came in contact with in the film industry. And then he went on to make bigger budget films and more successful films, etc. But his reputation was built on these no budget movies. And so I love that concept. And I've always felt that independent cinema was the most exciting and the most, in a way, successful artistically.
Yes, absolutely. And thanks for mentioning that because I had that question around the.
One of the things that gave me such great pleasure because at the time working in Italy, I met Sergio Leone, and he had done all the spaghetti westerns. He was very, very successful. But he had a project that he had wanted to make for many years, Once Upon a Time in America. And I remember he had a white Rolls Royce. And what he would do, he would print about 20 copies or 30 copies of the script of Once Upon a Time in America, translated into English. And he would drive from Rome to Cannes for the film festival.
Mm-hmm.
He was determined to make Once Upon a Time in America. And he would come to the festival. He could never, despite having established a genre of movie, the most successful spaghetti westerns, and he wanted to make a different kind of movie. And so nobody would back him. I offered, when I was an agent, to try and represent him to sell the project. Couldn't do it. And so he had said, I'm not going to direct another movie until I direct Once Upon a Time in America.
Good.
And for 10 years, he didn't direct a movie. He produced and had other involvement, didn't direct a movie. And so when I was at the lab company, Warner Brothers, I said, listen, Sergio Leone's got this project, Time in America. I believe in this thing. And it's, let's have a look at it. So I had my colleagues read the script, and Alan Ladd Jr., who was in charge of the company, he said, well, maybe I think because it would be an expensive film, we should try and bring in a partner, et cetera, et cetera. So we brought in a man called Arnon Milchan, who was an Israeli producer and an arms dealer. That's where he made his money, selling Israeli guns to Iran, ironically. So, he came in as one of the partners, and we got the film made that way. But it was interesting that was the only way he could get the movie made. Lucky that.
It's an amazing movie. I really, really, really recommend it because it's true. It's completely different than what Sergio Leone do in the moment. But it is now a classic movie that you can, as a reference, right? Well, I feel like as a film student, we have to see it, to study. It's very important. It's like we study Thelma and Louise. That we like to talk a little bit about that. A little bit, if you have some story about that behind that you want to share with us, with this audience.
Story about what?
The Thelma and Louise as well.
Thelma and Louise.
Yeah. How you get? Because that's another.
Ridley brought the script to us. We loved the script. We agreed to do the movie, and we cast and brilliantly cast. And it was an interesting. We took the film to preview it. We were very happy with it. We took it to preview it, and we had a very mixed reaction at the previews. Of course, at the end of the movie, two characters go off the cliff, and
that's hard.
The feedback from the previews, because the audience would fill out cards and we'd have discussion afterwards. They said, well, we don't want the film to end that way, this and that. So Ridley went away and he shot like 6 or 7 different endings, where one ending where this car goes up into the heaven, and another ending where they jumped out of the car, but the car went over. But none of them worked. So we stuck with the original ending, and the film got pretty good reviews.
Yes.
That again was a film that was discovered over a period of time, and became very, very successful over a period of years, rather than becoming a big box office hit immediately. The public discovered the film.
Yes. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Sandy, to share that with us, because I love the movie that I have been watching 100 times. Plus, we in Cuba, we studied, analyze the script, the productions. We really, really go in, and yes, we do that as a part of the film study. We are almost at the end, and I don't want to miss talk with you about something I find it in the online internet. Something it stuck to me about you is in one interview you gave. I thought it was about a collection. I studied photograph or something. They said you are a big collector, a photograph collector. Yes, photograph collector. So I would like to ask you if you can share with us what type the photograph you collect, and what is the most bizarre thing you ever collect. I love collecting too. And that's something it stuck with me. Tell me.
Photographs in the other room.
All right.
Here's a couple of photographs. Yeah.
Okay.
This is
okay.
You recognize who that?
Yes, they are on that side. Yes.
Gable.
Mm-hmm.
And Joan Crawford.
My goodness, that's so beautiful.
He did the screen test, Gone with the Wind.
Wow.
So this is a classic. The photographer is Hurrell, Hurrell, and he was a very famous photographer from the 40s and 50s who worked for the studio. This is a classic studio photograph.
It's so beautiful.
And of course, she didn't get the part. The part went not to her, but to Vivian Leigh. So this was a screen test she did for
a screen test. Wow. And the quality is beautiful.
One of the kind of photographs. Classic Meyer Bridge. Fantastic.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yes, leave it like that. Perfect. Thank you. Wow. And where did you find that, how you start with this collection? Tell me. Tell us.
How did I decide my collection?
Yes, how did you get passion in that?
I responded to what I collected. Not, a professional collector.
All right.
Whatever I like. Yeah.
It's okay. No.
You can see around the room there the posters I've got.
Yeah. Which one it was? Oh.
There is Elizabeth Taylor from Cleopatra.
Yes, I will
poster.
You. Yes.
That's
Pippin
Powell and Pressburger.
Michael Powell. Yes. Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. May I ask you, maybe Alien, of course. Oh my God, that's the original poster.
That was something that Giger, who did the artwork special effects on the film, that was his poster that he made. And then next to it is a poster that was originally the artwork. I don't know whether you can see it or not.
No, it's very hard, but I will like to ask. The Blade Runner.
That was the original Blade Runner artwork.
Oh my goodness, that's beautiful.
Rejected that. And they used something terrible.
Well, that happens. I would like to ask you, because you are a wise person, of course, and you have long experience in this life. So I would like to ask you, what gives you a sense of away?
Every morning you wake up and you think, yeah, I'm glad I woke up.
Well, every day we have to do that. At any age, I think.
I wake up in the morning because I don't want to die. So you want to wake up. And I still feel excited about things. A picture, it could be a photograph, it could be a film, it could be a song. So I feel excited about just being alive and being able to participate in life and still do some work as well, creatively.
I know.
So, I think if you embrace life, if you embrace it, which means that you have to accept the bad and the good, because life is not just bad or good.
Exactly.
The mixture, good things and bad things. And if you're lucky, you get more good things than bad things.
Yes.
But you have to accept the fact. As a producer, I learned that very early on. You have to expect rejection, failure, success if you're, lucky. You have to be able to deal with all of those kind of emotions, particularly the rejection, and come back again, try again. Every great artist makes every great picture. Sometimes,
Yes.
It's
no, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
You need a resilience. This is not a business for the faint-hearted. You need to be strong. And that is why, even as an agent, I began to identify with the actors, because they have to go on the stage. They have to be there creating a character. They're in front of the, front of the camera. It make or break. And so I always admired that about the actors, the fact that they had the courage to do that.
You have a long path in many roles in the industry, in the film industry and TV, and also as a supervisor as well, as a mentor, as a educator. So you have been walking almost all the roles, right? And you had that experience. So that's something I would like to remark and say thank you, because thanks to you, we can understand how the industry work and the business, the film, and also walking that path maybe one day in different way, of course.
Well, I've spent part of my life as a teacher.
Yes.
And the greatest pleasure is to see if your students have learned something from you or gained some insight into filmmaking. And so I have great pleasure in doing that, being able to try and encourage and direct people of how to succeed. And I think it's nice to be able to give something back.
Yes.
That people have a responsibility to try and help the next generation to succeed.
That's beautiful.
So I feel very strongly about that.
And you always do, because still under your own companies, right? You still help to keep building that industry path. Do you want to talk about that, your umbrella?
Otherwise, it becomes a very sterile environment, and what you want is something where you feel
yes,
it's still growing and exciting. I don't know, I went to see a horror film a couple of weeks ago called Maxine, Maxxxine. And I thought, wow, he's a guy who knows how to make a film. There was a brilliant actress in it as well. And I thought, okay, but it's in this low budget horror genre. You say that, wow, this guy can make a film and she's a brilliant actress and they're going to have a career and go on to do other things as well. So
that's good.
It's still feel engaged and excited about those kind of things.
Yes.
Keep discovering, keep curious.
Yes.
Curiosity is a very powerful element, particularly if you are a producer, but it also applies to writers, directors as well.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sandy. Now that's so beautiful. And yes, I have a almost last question. I would like to keep going talking with you because it's been a long time I didn't see you. And I always remember after school class little conversation, the very interesting things that you always share with us. And it was fascinating. And yes, I would like to ask you if you share with us what resonant to you watch or reading or listen, what something beautiful that you have find, like that movie you say, and if you want to share another movie or reading that you recently find, or a photograph in your collections.
Yesterday, my wife and I, we went to see two films. We saw a documentary called Hollywood Land. It's a brilliant documentary. It's about what the Americans left behind in Afghanistan when they got, they had to leave very quickly. And they pulled out very quickly when President Biden decided that was the end. And they left behind 100 different aircraft, helicopters, the most amazing thing where you could, create a whole army from what the Americans left behind in Afghanistan when they got out so quickly. So that is what the documentary is about. Brilliant documentary.
I will check it out.
What it does also, it lets you into the mentality of the Taliban, how they think, what's important, their view of society. So it's all mixed together with this astonishing, how they, because the documentary starts just after the Americans have left. And so, finding out what they left behind. They had no idea that all this equipment and all these planes and helicopters and everything, the Americans just left them.
That's an amazing story.
It's a fascinating documentary. And then we saw the second film we saw. It was called, I think, River Runs Slowly.
I didn't know.
It's a Japanese film.
Oh, I love Japanese.
Detective thriller, beautifully made. Once again,
Oh,
an exceptional
perfect.
film.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for sharing. I will definitely look around and watch it because I always love to ask the people what they reading or watching in this time now, because it's always fascinating how we discover new things, when we share that. Thank you so much, Sandy.
Yeah.
And my last question, last. This is the last. If you want to take a moment to reflect, what are the 3 things the world needs right now? The planet, this Earth planet that we are now. What we need right now? It's a hard question, I know.
We are Homo sapiens. And when you see, we've created some of the most exciting and extraordinary things as a race of people. I guess.
Yes.
Yes, when you look what's going on in Gaza or Ukraine or Africa, what we're capable of doing as human beings, it's extraordinary. The worst and the best. So we're a very imperfect society. Yeah.
Yes.
People don't like to accept that, but that is the truth. We have the worst and the best within us. It's a difficult thing to live with for some people. Impossible. It's the reality.
Yes. That's so beautiful. And that's the reason I say you are wise.
Bad, and the ugly. Sergio Leone would say, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes. Absolutely. No, that's a beautiful. Thank you so much, Sandy, because yes, for that I am grateful every morning. I don't know if I really have more questions, but I really don't want to make you. I know you're on the other side. If you have something else to share with me or with us in the audience, if you have something that I missed or you want to share, I don't know.
I'm just happy to have been able to speak to you like this and reunite, and it gives me great pleasure to see you've gone on from being a student at U.S.A TV to success, and that makes me very happy. And so I'm really pleased that you contacted me and that we were able to have this conversation.
That's so beautiful. I'm so beautiful. I'm so grateful that you say yes. And yes. I am so delighted that having you in this episode, but also the reconnect, as you say, reunite. That's a very beautiful word. And let's keep in touch. And of course, this is the first open door to keep going and know about you and connect with you and be in touch.